My daughter uninvited me from her anniversary party, so I canceled the venue she thought her husband reserved. I bet she wasn't expecting that when she told me I was too embarrassing to be around her new friends. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories about families learning important lessons about respect and appreciation. I never thought I'd be the kind of mother who would take such drastic action against her own daughter, but there comes a point where enough is enough. I'm 58 years old, and I've spent my entire adult life putting my children first. My daughter Melissa is 32 now, and for the past decade, I've watched her transform from the sweet, considerate girl I raised into someone I barely recognize. Someone who seems to care more about impressing her wealthy friends than showing basic respect to the woman who sacrificed everything for her. The anniversary party was supposed to be a celebration of her and James' 5th year of marriage, a marriage I helped make possible with the $35,000 I contributed to their wedding when James was still finishing his medical residency. But apparently, my presence would bring down the tone of their elegant affair. At least, that's what Melissa told me over the phone last Tuesday, her voice dripping with that condescending tone she's perfected since moving into their new house in the gated community. What she didn't know was that James had never actually reserved the venue himself. 3 months ago, when they started planning this party, James called me specifically because he needed my help. "Mom," he'd said, using that affectionate term he'd adopted since the wedding, "the venue Melissa wants requires a $5,000 deposit, and with the student loans and the new house payment, we're a little stretched thin right now. Could you possibly help us out? I promise I'll pay you back as soon as my end-of-year bonus comes through." Of course, I agreed. I always did. And not only did I pay the deposit, but I also ended up covering the entire $12,000 venue fee because James kept finding reasons to delay the repayment. I never mentioned it to Melissa because James insisted he wanted to surprise her with the perfect anniversary celebration. Little did I know that I was financing my own exclusion. To understand why this uninvitation hurts so deeply, you need to know more about my relationship with Melissa. I raised her and her brother as a single mother after their father walked out when Melissa was just 7 years old. He decided his secretary was more exciting than his family responsibilities, leaving me with 2 young children, a mortgage I could barely afford, and not nearly enough child support to make ends meet. I worked 2 jobs for most of Melissa's childhood, my regular position as an administrative assistant at the local hospital during the day, and evening shifts at a call center 3 nights a week. Weekends were spent cleaning houses for extra cash. Despite the exhaustion, I never missed a school play, a parent-teacher conference, or a soccer game. I made sure my children never felt the full weight of our financial struggles, even when it meant going without new clothes or skipping meals myself. When Melissa showed academic promise in high school, I took out a second mortgage on our modest home to ensure she could attend the private university she had her heart set on. $87,000 in loans that I'm still paying off today, even though I'm supposed to be saving for retirement. Her brother opted for community college and then state university, understanding our financial limitations, but Melissa always had bigger dreams, dreams I couldn't bear to crush. During her college years, Melissa began to change. She made friends with students from wealthy families, began using phrases I'd never heard before, and gradually grew embarrassed by our modest home and my simple lifestyle. Still, I supported her, sending care packages I could barely afford and listening to her stories about weekend trips to New York and spring breaks in Cancun that her new friends' parents funded. After graduation, I helped her with the security deposit and first month's rent on her first apartment in the city, $3,800 that I pulled from my meager emergency fund. When she met James in her final year of graduate school, another $42,000 investment from me, I was thrilled. He came from a middle-class background similar to ours, was studying medicine, and seemed to genuinely care for my daughter. His parents had passed away during his undergraduate years, and he often told me how much he appreciated being welcomed into our family. Their wedding was a turning point. Melissa wanted something far more lavish than I could afford, but when James' residency program accepted him, she insisted they needed to establish themselves properly in their new social circle. I emptied my 401k, paying the 10% early withdrawal penalty, to give them the $35,000 they needed for the wedding of Melissa's dreams. I told myself it was worth it to see my daughter happy, even as I worried about my own financial future. After James completed his residency and began his practice as an orthopedic surgeon, their lifestyle escalated dramatically. They moved into a $1.2 million home in an exclusive neighborhood, joined the country club, and suddenly Melissa's social media was filled with pictures of charity galas and wine tastings. Meanwhile, I had to return to working weekends to rebuild my depleted retirement fund. Despite the growing distance between us, I continued to support them. When they wanted to furnish their new home, I contributed $8,000 toward the living room set Melissa had her heart set on. When James wanted to surprise her with a trip to Europe for their third anniversary, I lent him $7,500 for the luxury package he couldn't quite afford yet. He still hasn't paid that back, though he assures me his practice is just about to turn the corner into serious profitability. Throughout all of this, our phone calls became less frequent, and my invitations to visit were met with increasingly transparent excuses. Melissa would call primarily when she needed something: advice on dealing with their landscaper, recommendations for reliable housekeepers, or occasionally, more financial assistance for some emergency or special occasion. I always responded with the same maternal dedication, believing that eventually, once they felt secure in their new life, our relationship would return to what it once was. James, to his credit, made more effort than Melissa did. He would call me on Mother's Day and my birthday without fail, occasionally invite me to lunch when he was in my area for a medical conference, and seemed genuinely grateful for all I had done for them. That's why I never hesitated when he asked for help with the anniversary party venue. I thought, finally, this might be an opportunity to be included in their world. The uninvitation came during what I thought would be a routine call about the party details. Melissa called on Tuesday afternoon, and I was excited to hear about the final arrangements, wondering what I should wear to fit in with their upscale friends. "Mom," she began, her voice carrying that slight edge it gets when she's uncomfortable. "I need to talk to you about the anniversary party." "Of course, honey," I replied, already reaching for a pen to write down whatever information she was about to share. "I was wondering what the dress code is. Is it black tie or more cocktail attire?" There was a pause, followed by a small, uncomfortable laugh. "That's actually what I'm calling about. James and I have been going over the guest list, and we've run into a bit of a situation." "Oh? Is the venue too small?" "I'm sure they can accommodate a few extra people if needed." I was naively helpful, completely unprepared for what was coming. "No, it's not that. The thing is, most of the guests are colleagues from James' practice and some of our friends from the club. Very influential people in the medical community." She paused again, longer this time. "We've been thinking that it might be better if you didn't attend." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What do you mean, not attend?" "I don't understand." "Mom, please don't make this harder than it needs to be." Her tone shifted to that patronizing one she uses when she thinks I'm being difficult. "These are people we need to impress. James is up for partnership at the practice, and the senior partners and their wives will be there. It needs to be a certain type of event. And I'm not the right type?" My voice had grown small, but a spark of anger was beginning to ignite somewhere deep inside me. "You know what I mean," she sighed. "Last time you met James' colleagues at the Christmas party, you spent 20 minutes talking to Dr. Whitman about your bargain shopping strategies and how you make your own cleaning products. It was embarrassing." "Embarrassing?" I repeated, the spark growing hotter. Dr. Whitman seemed interested. He even asked me for my vinegar solution recipe. He was being polite, Mom. That's what people like that do. The condescension in her voice was unmistakable now. "Look, we just can't risk you saying something inappropriate. These people vacation in the Maldives and have vacation homes in Aspen. They don't want to hear about your coupon clipping or your second job cleaning Mrs. Peterson's house." I felt tears welling up, but I fought to keep my voice steady. "Melissa, those things you find so embarrassing are what put you through school. They paid for your wedding. They're nothing to be ashamed of." "I'm not ashamed of you," she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "I just think this particular event isn't the right setting. We can have lunch next week, just the three of us, to celebrate more casually." "Does James know you're uninviting me?" I asked, wondering if my son-in-law was complicit in this cruelty. Of course. We discussed it together, she replied without hesitation. He agrees it's for the best. His career has to come first right now. That was when the first real crack appeared in my usually unshakable maternal patience. I see. And what about the fact that I paid for the entire venue? Does that count for anything? There was a moment of confused silence. What are you talking about? James handled all the arrangements. Did he tell you that? I asked, my voice growing stronger as righteous indignation replaced hurt. Because 3 months ago, James called me saying he couldn't afford the deposit. I not only paid the $5,000 deposit, but covered the entire $12,000 fee when he said he was still waiting on his bonus. That's not possible, Melissa sputtered. James said he took care of everything. He said it was his gift to me. Well, his gift to you is actually my money, I said flatly. Money I took from my house repair fund. The roof I've been saving to fix for 3 years now leaks every time it rains, but I thought your happiness was more important. I'm sure there's some misunderstanding, she said, but her voice had lost its confident edge. James wouldn't lie to me about something like that. Call the venue, I suggested. Ask them whose credit card is on file. Ask them who they've been coordinating with for the past 3 months. This doesn't change anything about the party, she said after a moment, her voice hardening again. It's still not appropriate for you to attend. If what you're saying is true, then consider it a gift. That's what mothers do, right? Give without expecting anything in return. Those words, so entitled, so callous, were the final straw. Decades of sacrifice, years of putting Melissa's needs above my own, all dismissed with that single, selfish statement. Something inside me that had bent and bent for years finally snapped. Yes, Melissa. That is what I've always done. But maybe it's time I stopped. What's that supposed to mean? She asked, suddenly wary. It means I need to go. I have a call to make. I ended the conversation before she could respond. My hands were shaking as I pulled up the venue's number on my phone. The events coordinator, Miranda, answered on the second ring. We had developed quite a friendly relationship over the past 3 months of planning. Good afternoon, Mrs. Bennett. Excited about the big party on Saturday? Miranda's cheerful voice asked. Actually, Miranda, there's been a change of plans, I said, my voice remarkably calm considering the storm raging inside me. I need to cancel the reservation for Saturday night. Cancel? But we're only 4 days away. Is everything all right? Her concern seemed genuine. No, everything is not all right, I admitted. My daughter has decided I'm not welcome at the party I paid for. Since I'm the one whose name is on the contract and whose credit card has been charged, I believe that gives me the right to cancel. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. First came the text messages from James, 12 of them in rapid succession, ranging from confusion to pleading to barely concealed anger. Then came Melissa's calls, which I let go to voicemail, each message more frantic than the last. Finally, around noon, they showed up at my door unannounced. I was in the middle of patching yet another leak in my roof, a task I'd become all too familiar with while waiting to save enough for proper repairs. I saw their luxury SUV pull into my driveway from my precarious perch on the ladder. I climbed down slowly, giving myself time to collect my thoughts. By the time I reached the ground, they were already pounding on my front door. I took a deep breath, wiped my hands on my worn jeans, and went to face them. Melissa burst in the moment I opened the door. What have you done? She nearly screamed, her carefully highlighted hair falling out of its perfect arrangement, her expensive makeup unable to hide the redness in her face. The venue called and said our reservation was canceled. They said you canceled it. James followed behind her, his expression a mixture of anger and embarrassment. Mrs. Bennett, there must be some misunderstanding. The party is in 4 days. We have 60 guests confirmed. I looked at them both calmly. There's no misunderstanding. I canceled the venue that I paid for with my own money, money that you, James, promised to repay months ago. Money that came from the fund I was saving to fix my leaking roof. I gestured upward, where a visible water stain spread across my ceiling. You had no right, Melissa shouted. That was our anniversary party. I had every right, I replied, my voice still even. My name is on the contract. My credit card was charged $12,000 for a party I was told I'm too embarrassing to attend. This is about being uninvited? Melissa threw her hands up in exasperation. You're ruining our reputation over hurt feelings? All my friends' parents know when to step back and let their children live their lives. Is that what you think this is about? Hurt feelings. I shook my head slowly. This is about respect, Melissa. This is about years of taking and never giving anything back, not even basic courtesy. We can fix this, James interjected, always the pragmatist. I'll call the venue, explain there was a miscommunication. We can put it back on my card. The venue is already booked for another event, I informed them. Miranda told me they had a waiting list, and someone snapped it up within an hour of my cancellation. There's no fixing this. Melissa collapsed onto my worn sofa, tears streaming down her face. Do you have any idea what this makes us look like? We've already sent the location to everyone. Dr. Whitman and his wife are flying in specifically for this. The hospital board president RSVP'd yes. Perhaps you should have thought about that before deciding I wasn't good enough to attend, I suggested. Or before spending years being ashamed of the mother who worked 2 jobs to put you through college. That's not fair, James protested. We've always been grateful. Grateful. I cut him off. Is that why you've never repaid a single dollar of the money I've lent you? The $7,500 for your European vacation? The $8,000 for furniture? The $35,000 wedding? Is that what gratitude looks like to you? James had the decency to look ashamed, but Melissa was still focused on her immediate crisis. We need to find another venue. Immediately. Somewhere even better to make up for the change. Good luck with that, I said. Most places book months in advance. You need to fix this, Melissa demanded, standing up and pointing her finger at me. This is your fault, and you need to make it right. Call in favors, find us another place, do something. That was when I delivered the ultimatum that had been forming in my mind since our phone call the day before. I will help you find another venue on one condition, I said firmly. You both sit down right now, and we have an honest conversation about money, respect, and family. And when we're done, we draw up a repayment plan for every dollar I've lent you over the past decade, with interest. You can't be serious, Melissa scoffed. That was all given freely. You never said anything about repayment. I'm dead serious, I replied. And James knows very well that many of those gifts were explicitly described as loans. James wouldn't meet my eyes, confirming my statement. So that's it? Financial blackmail. Melissa's voice had turned cold. Pay you back or lose our anniversary party? No, I corrected her. Acknowledge your disrespect, commit to changing your behavior, and pay back what you owe, or find your own solution to your current predicament. I let the silence hang in the air as they looked at each other, communicating silently in that way couples do. The ball was in their court now. After my ultimatum, Melissa stormed out to the car, slamming the door behind her. James lingered, clearly torn between following his wife and trying to salvage the situation with me. She'll calm down, he said quietly. This party is important to her. I know exactly how important it is, I replied. That's why I canceled it. Sometimes the only way to teach an important lesson is through difficult consequences. What do you want me to do? He asked, running his hand through his hair in frustration. I want you to be honest, James. With me, with Melissa, and with yourself. I want you to acknowledge that you've been using me as an ATM while allowing your wife to treat me like an embarrassing family secret. He couldn't hold my gaze. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple, I insisted. Now go talk to your wife. You have decisions to make. After they left, I made 3 important phone calls. The first was to my bank, where I closed the joint account I had maintained since Melissa was in college, an account I had kept open for emergencies, but which had primarily served as a way for them to access funds whenever they wanted. The second call was to my attorney, Barbara, who had helped me with my will after Melissa's father left. I need to make some changes, I told her. And I need your help drafting a formal loan document. What kind of loan document? Barbara asked. One that outlines every penny I've lent my daughter and son-in-law over the past decade, with reasonable interest applied. I have records of everything, dates, amounts, and the few partial repayments they've made. And if they refuse to sign? Barbara asked cautiously. Then I'll proceed with the other changes we'll discuss, amendments to my will and advance directives that remove them as beneficiaries and decision makers. The third call was to my financial advisor, who helped me calculate the total amount owed, $143,500 in principal loans, plus approximately $28,700 in reasonable interest. Together, we restructured my modest investment portfolio to better protect my retirement, removing Melissa's access to any accounts. The next day, Melissa called again. Her tone had shifted from anger to persuasion. "Mom, I've been thinking about what you said," she began, her voice honey-sweet. "I realize we haven't been as appreciative as we should have been. And you're right, you should definitely come to the party." "What party would that be?" I asked. "I thought the venue was already rebooked." "James managed to find another place," she said triumphantly. "It's actually even more exclusive, a private room at the Westbrook Country Club. One of the partners pulled some strings." "How nice for you," I replied. "I hope you enjoy it. So you'll come?" The hope in her voice was transparent. "That depends. Have you and James discussed my other conditions?" The acknowledgement of disrespect and the repayment plan. There was a pause. "Mom, be reasonable. We can't possibly repay everything all at once. James is still building his practice, and we have the mortgage on the house, country club dues." "I'm not asking for immediate repayment," I clarified. "I'm asking for acknowledgement of the debt and a structured plan to repay it over time. My attorney has drawn up the paperwork." "You got a lawyer involved?" The sweetness vanished from her voice. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. Barbara has prepared documents outlining every loan, with a reasonable payment schedule based on your income. 5 years should be sufficient to clear the debt." "This is insane," she exploded. "You're my mother. Mothers help their children." "Yes, we do," I agreed. "But we don't enable entitlement and disrespect." "The papers will be ready tomorrow. You can come by and sign them or not. It's your choice." "And if we don't sign your ridiculous contract?" she challenged. "Then several things will happen," I said calmly. "First, I'll officially report the venue payment as fraudulent, since James misrepresented how the money would be used. Second, I'll be making changes to my will and advance directives. And third, I'll be sharing some interesting text messages from James with Dr. Whitman about what he really thinks of the senior partners' outdated medical approaches. Messages James sent me by mistake last Christmas that I never deleted. The silence on the other end told me my message had landed with its intended impact. "You wouldn't," she finally whispered. "I absolutely would," I confirmed. "I've spent decades letting you take advantage of my love, Melissa. That ends today." "I need to talk to James," she said weakly. "Do that. Then call me back with your decision." 3 hours later, they were sitting in my living room while Barbara explained the terms of the repayment agreement. James looked defeated. Melissa alternated between sullen silence and teary appeals to family loyalty. But when Barbara finished her explanation and placed the document before them, they both signed. The payment schedule was reasonable, $2,865 per month for 60 months, automatically withdrawn from their account. The first payment would hit before their rescheduled anniversary party. "There's one more thing," I said after the papers were signed. "I want you both to attend financial counseling. I've already paid for 6 sessions with a respected advisor who specializes in helping young professionals develop healthy money habits." "Is that really necessary?" James asked wearily. "Absolutely," I replied. "Because this isn't just about the money you owe me. It's about building a future where you live within your means instead of beyond them." As they prepared to leave, Melissa paused at the door. "Will you still come to the party on Saturday?" she asked, her voice small. "No," I said gently. "I think it's better if I don't. But not because I'm embarrassing, because you both need time to reflect on the changes we've agreed to today. We'll celebrate together when our relationship is back on solid ground." In the weeks that followed, I heard through mutual friends that the hastily rearranged anniversary party at the country club had been a subdued affair. Several guests had questioned the last-minute venue change, and Melissa had been forced to admit that there had been a family miscommunication about the original reservation. The first monthly payment arrived in my account exactly as scheduled. I immediately transferred it to my roof repair fund, and 2 weeks later, I finally had proper repairs done on my leaking roof. The sense of security that came with a solid roof over my head, one that I had provided for myself with money that was rightfully mine, brought a satisfaction far deeper than any I would have felt attending a party where I wasn't truly welcome. Melissa and James attended their first financial counseling session, according to the confirmation email I received from the counselor. James called afterward, sounding thoughtful. "I never realized how much we've been spending on things that don't really matter," he admitted. The counselor had us track every expense for a week, and it was eye-opening. "That's a good first step," I encouraged him. Financial honesty is important, both with yourselves and with others. Gradually, small changes began to appear. Melissa's social media posts about expensive dinners and shopping trips decreased. When my birthday came around, instead of the usual overpriced flower delivery that I knew strained their budget, they brought a homemade dinner to my house and spent the evening with me. Melissa even asked for my vinegar cleaning solution recipe, admitting that they were trying to cut down on unnecessary expenses. My relationship with my daughter remains a work in progress. There are still moments of tension when the monthly payment leaves their account, still occasional comments that reveal the entitlement hasn't completely disappeared. But there's also a growing respect that wasn't there before, a recognition that love doesn't mean unlimited giving without accountability. Last week, I received a handwritten note from Melissa that brought tears to my eyes. "Mom," it read, "I'm sorry it took such drastic measures for me to see how I've been treating you. The financial counselor asked us to identify our money role models, and I realized that you, with your careful saving and thoughtful spending, are the example I should have been following all along. Thank you for the difficult lesson. I'm finally learning. As for the money being repaid, I've earmarked it for a purpose Melissa doesn't yet know about. Once the debt is cleared, I plan to use it to establish college funds for any grandchildren that might come along. Not as blank checks to enable entitlement, but as structured education accounts that will teach the next generation about both generosity and responsibility, the lesson their mother is finally beginning to understand. Sometimes, the most loving thing a parent can do isn't to give endlessly, but to establish boundaries that teach valuable life lessons. My daughter uninvited me from her anniversary party, and I canceled the venue she thought her husband had reserved. It wasn't an act of revenge, but a necessary wake-up call that has put our family on a path to healthier relationships and greater mutual respect.